kind of give you just a brief definition of generative AI. Before coming up with this on my own, I was like, let me just ask ChatGPT and see if it can come up with a simple answer for me that I can kind of present to all of you. And long story short, it kind of gave a very vague, high-level, generic sort of definition of generative AI being an AI that can create new content or data by learning patterns and structures from existing data. Not a lot of this makes a lot of sense. And so I kind of took a step back and said, okay, well, what is a way that I can use to kind of explain this in a more simple space? So to kind of keep it simple and to kind of take it in just layman's terms for a second, I'd like to use the analogy of just a building or a skyscraper. So let's say generative AI is a lot like a skyscraper. As I'm sure you may probably, some of you have probably seen, right, the Empire State Building, some of you have seen it or visited it at least. It's a large building in Manhattan. And I'd like to kind of go off the analogy that generative AI is a lot like a skyscraper. And to kind of sort of build on that analogy a little bit, the steel and the concrete are kind of the vast amounts of data that are used to actually build this skyscraper. So, think about, steel and concrete being strong and robust to kind of help support a massive structure like that. And as I'm sure you probably have, I must imagine, right, in order for these AI models to actually do really well and to perform their tasks well, they need to be built on strong, stable, robust data ultimately. So think of this as just kind of the basic foundation of your AI algorithm, if you will. Think of the blueprints as like what we call AI model architecture for generative AI. So these are what some of you may potentially have heard of as neural networks or things like that, that are kind of the quote unquote thinking processes behind these large language models like GPT and such. So you can see here in tandem, you can kind of get a sense of how the building's constructed when you have the raw materials and data like steel and concrete, and you have the blueprints or the path or the vision to building the actual structure with your blueprints or your neural networks, if you will. So you have your steel and concrete, you have your blueprints, and now you obviously have to build the building, right? So you then come to the part where the construction workers come in and they take those resources, they take that knowledge and information, and they help build that structure. And this is what's called training the AI algorithm. So this will take months, weeks, sometimes even years as well to kind of have you build a strong, robust building that can be used for a variety of purposes. And ultimately, when you combine that training process and the data and the blueprints and the neural networks to kind of construct that building or that AI model, you're left with kind of this thing that serves a singular purpose, which is, in this case of the Empire State Building, you have a concierge directing you to specific products or services or resources within a certain building. And think of this as generative AI just kind of taking in your user input and generating a response out ultimately. And so what you have here is kind of this massive structure that provides a value or service. And it's an AI model that's basically built on a robust data set that's designed to complete a singular task ultimately.